If you're into rotary mixers, this one I'm about to show you might look a little familiar. Mastersounds may have departed from the mixer space, but the engineer behind their products, Andy Rigby-Jones, is moving forward with some familiar designs and some entirely new stuff too. Welcome to Beatsource Tech, my name is Mojaxx, and in this episode we're talking about the Orbit.2 LE effects from Union Audio. A quick refresher for you, Mastersounds mixers were a collaboration between Ryan Shaw of Mastersounds and Andy Rigby-Jones. Ryan obviously had a role in deciding the flavour and direction of the mixers, but the actual engineering was done by Andy, who is best known for his work designing legendary mixers like the Zone 92 for Allen and Heath. And now that Mastersounds aren't doing mixers anymore, Andy is focused entirely on his own brand, Union Audio. They came out of the gate swinging with the Orbit.2, one of the most expensive DJ mixers ever made, and followed that up with the Alara 4, a unique 4-channel fader mixer rather than a rotary. I've had this Orbit.2 in the lab so long they've actually released another mixer since, the Alara 6, which appears to be going directly after the Zone user base. I will get to that one as soon as I can. In the meantime though, the ending of the Mastersounds line means that Union Audio have been able to step in and basically replace that brand's Radius and Valve models with the Orbit and Valve line. As far as I can tell, the Valve models are identical to their Mastersounds predecessors, but there are a couple of changes with the more affordable Orbits. Many things have not changed. As with the Radius mixers, these are handmade in Union Audio's factory in the southwest of the UK. So the build quality is identical and still uniformly excellent, with Alps rotaries and everything bolted to the all-metal body, as is the analogue sound quality. Having listened to both extensively, there is a difference in sound when you move up to the Valve units, much of which is down to the eponymous valves themselves, but the Orbits will give you pretty much the best sound you can get for the price, whether playing vinyl or digital sources. Speaking of price, the 2-channel Orbit models offer what I think is excellent value for money. The regular Orbit.2 LE sells for around $930 in the US, and the FX version I've been testing goes for a couple of hundred more at roughly $1,130, and that seems about right to me. They're definitely a step up from budget Omnitronic rotaries and the like, but not quite in the same league as the company's own higher end units or brands like Resor, Condenser and Alpha, all of which cost substantially more. There are also 4-channel versions of the Orbit, the Orbit 4 LE and the Orbit 4 LE FX. These are basically the same as the 2-channel ones, but with, predictably, 4 channels. They sell for roughly $300 more than their 2-channel equivalents, and are worth considering if you need those extra sources, or indeed mic inputs, as they both have 2 of those. One other notable difference between the Union Audio and Mastersounds ecosystems, Union Audio are working with distributors in places like the UK, the US and Canada. Mastersounds were only ever interested in selling directly to end users, which has its own benefits, but Union Audio's approach mean that their mixers will be easier to source and crucially demo in stores in different territories. So I absolutely welcome that. And this is time sensitive, but if you're watching this video close to when it's released, buyers in European Union countries can score an extra 15% discount when buying direct from Union Audio until the end of 2024. So that is worth checking out on their site. Looking quickly at the Orbit.2 LE, we see one change from the Mastersounds Radius 2 Mark II, and that's the fact that it only has a 3-band isolator, otherwise it seems to be identical. With the Orbit.2 LE effects, we have the 4-band isolator with a button to bypass the sub if you prefer 3-band. As with the Radius, that bypass button is not completely silent. It is quiet, but there is a small pop when you engage or disengage it. I suspect most users will set that to their preference at the start of their set and leave it alone though. Both the Orbit.2s have the same connectivity. Each channel has a line and phono input. Master out is on balanced XLRs, and there's a booth output with balanced jacks. There's a record output on RCAs, and then a send and return circuit with jack sockets, and you can use the return as an insert with the correct cables too. Power is on an external brick, and that can be upgraded to the company's Mix-R linear power supply if you like, although at over $400 that's a serious investment. There are both sizes of headphone socket. It annoys me that the Valve models don't have that, and there is split Q, which I always appreciate seeing. Something which might not come across on video is just how small the Orbit.2 is. It's about 9 inches wide and less than 8 inches front to back, properly tiny as DJ mixers go. This has one big advantage, portability. If you like or need to take your own rotary mixer with you, it will happily sit in a record bag alongside your vinyl. The possible disadvantage, and this really only applies to the FX version, is that it could feel a little cramped. On the regular version there's plenty of room between channel 2 and the mixer section, but with the FX version they've stuffed a whole FX unit into that gap. Is it too cramped then? Well, I had the mixer in hand long enough to do a few gigs with it, and after a little bit of time adjusting to it, I didn't really have an issue with the spacing. Things are tight in there for sure, but it's still perfectly usable. If that's a real concern for you, maybe look at the orbit.2 LE effects instead. If you never use channel 4 on there, then your hands will rarely go near the effects controls. The effects unit in the orbit.2 LE effects is very much along the lines of the Mastersounds external effects unit, which makes sense as Andy Rigby-Jones designed that too, and for me they're just as much of a mixed bag. I love the analog delay and the reverbs, but the BPM delay doesn't really cut it for me, and that's the main effect that I use in my sets. And when we get to the back half of the effect lineup, the analog nature of everything causes a few issues to raise their head, at least for me. However, there's a lot to be said for the convenience of having effects built into the mixer. Adding on external units would cost at least as much, if not substantially more, than the $200 premium for buying the effects model, and then you have to deal with connecting those external boxes up, powering them, and all that jazz. So I'm definitely coming down on the side of having everything on board to begin with. At this point, I'll demo the mixer for you and the effects unit in particular. So a quick demo here on the orbit.2 LE effects. Not much has changed from the Mastersounds predecessor to this when we're talking about the basic controls. So your rotaries, the filter, so it's the variable Q filter. So starts off gentle and then gets a little bit more aggressive towards the end. So that's really for blending right there, and then if you want more of an effect coming round, trim control, aux sends, pre or post fader. Here's your isolator up top. Four-way as standard, and you can take out the sub. Then we move on to the reason really that I'm doing this demo is this effects unit here. Now, it does have auto BPM detection in there for a couple of the effects. I've power cycled the mixer, so it's only received input from this one track. But the first effect is not, in fact, BPM tied, it's the analog delay. It's probably my favorite effect out of the lot of them. To select the effect, you turn this dial here. And, you know, I'm sure you will get used to this over time, but this is not the most simple thing. Like, this is effect 0. That's, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, see, I'm already confused, but yeah. I think I'd probably be sticking with this analog delay most of the time. The first 3, so 0, 1, 2, and 3, or in fact the first 4, are all, you send them via the aux knobs on the channel. So I would turn the aux up there. Let's turn it on though, first of all. So we're on effect 0, the analog delay. So the parameter control does the feedback, and the one above the time does the time. Oh, I love that. I actually love that. It's brilliant. One of my favourite kind of effects, that. And because it's post fader, we do get the tail on there if I take the channel out. Really sideways, really squirrely. Love it, love it. Now when you change effects, it will turn off the effect unit. So we're going to move on to BPM delay. So we're going to turn it round till we get to there. So now we're on the BPM display. You can see it has detected a BPM. This is not the greatest BPM detection I've ever come across. It's not bad. I've had worse, but like it, you know, there is a tap tempo option to override it. You see it's flashing kind of in time. It's pretty good. Let's go. So we've set the time delay to 1. And let's turn it on. Again with the aux end turned up. See, to me that's definitely not a 1-1 delay. Let's tap and see if we can get a better result. It's just not quite there. And this was my whole thing with the Mastersounds effects previously as well. Like this BPM locked delay doesn't really do it for me. The analog delay, because it's not relying on that tempo, awesome. But the BPM one, yeah, not so much. Right, let's move on to the hall reverb. So there's the room size up here, and the high frequency. And of course the beauty of this is you can dial in as much of this as you want because you're doing it with the aux end. So you can just bring in a bit, take a bit away. And it is a very good sounding reverb. We move on, then we've got the tech verb. This one emphasizes the low end. And it adds noise that syncs with the rhythm, which this kind of does. So I prefer that one over the hall verb. Easy to get those kind of just, you know, those little flourishes of reverb on there. I like that one a lot. We move on again to the flanger, and now, so we are in the region of, get there. We're now in the region of effects that don't rely on the send and return. So this is going to work on everything, including my voice, which is coming through this channel. So the parameter is the depth of the effect, and the time is the LFO sweep frequency. And that just sounds, yeah, that's naughty. I like that. Oh, that is naughty. My issue with this one and with the rest of these is that there's no way to like smoothly get in and out of them. It's on or it's off. And there is that little bit of popping there. Like you just can't smooth, there's no smooth way to get in and out of this. It's there or it's not. So it is fun, but like, yeah, it's, as always with analog effects, I always have issues with how do you get in and out of them in that kind of smooth, unobtrusive way, and there's no real way to do that. Same applies to the phaser. So we come around to the phaser. Again, it's noticeable when you go in. Again, it sounds good. It's a great sounding phaser. But there's no way to kind of smoothly transition from the clean signal into this. And again, the bit crusher, the same thing. There is no clean signal available, so it's on or off. And then finally we've got the filter. So it's like your master filter. And again, this is always an issue with the more affordable analog devices. There's not any zero crossing switches here, so it pops on the way in, pops on the way out. High pass and low pass combo adjustable resonance. And again, like no way to smoothly kind of get in and out. Even if you, like, it does change the sound a bit as well. Like, see when it's on, there's a little bit more high frequency. It's like boosting the highs a little bit. And again, that pop is ever present. So for me, it's really the first half of this lineup of effects that I would be using the most. The ones where you can use the sends, those make a lot more sense to me, but there is a lot of fun to be had with the bottom half of that lineup as well. So there you go, a look at the orbit.2 LE effects from Union Audio. Yes, much of this mixer we've seen before, but not with the effects integrated. As with the Radius 2 from Mastersounds before it, the orbit.2 LE is simply a wonderful, high quality choice in the sub $1,000 end of the Rotary market. So I guess the question is, would I recommend dropping the extra $200 for the effects version? Well, on the downside, it is a little more cramped, but you get the 4-band isolator, not just the 3-band, and as hit and miss as I find the effects unit to be, there is enough usable stuff in there for me to justify that extra cost. And you can't argue with the convenience of having everything in that one, very compact and portable box. In the comments, I'd love to hear from any of you who've bought a Union Audio mixer already. Let us know how you're getting on with it. And more generally, what would your dream external effects unit have on there? I know a few basics I'd like to see, but perhaps you've got some wild ideas which could really take DJ effects to a new level. Sound off down below. Thanks for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you've turned on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.